Today, our instructor is Dane Clarke, and we want to welcome him. He is just an awesome one of the leaders here in Team Elevate in the Salt Lake area. And we've got him this morning with us. Daine, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm going to hand over the controls to you, and hopefully your internet's working better than mine.
No problem. All right. I am going to. Let's see. Is it going to allow me to show screen? There we go. Google Drive. I've got some to do for you guys today. I'm going to try and go through it quick, just so we can finish on time. Dane Clarke, Gmail. Making this down now. Give me a second. Okay.
Hey Dane, I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I can't hear you. You're really muffled and it just sounds like a whole bunch of muffled noises.
Oh, weird. Let me move this.
It's also really robotic.
How's that? Is that any better?
It's still robotic and muffled.
How about that?
A little better, we can kind of decipher now, but it's not.
Let me just fire in actually. Let's see.
Sounds like robotic.
Technology is pretty great, but sometimes a live situation can bring up technical difficulties. I think Daine is logging off and logging back on to see if we can resolve his the audio portion of his presentation. Give us just a moment.
Is that any better?
So much better, we can hear you now.
It's excellent.
Okay,
Daine.
perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect. And for some reason,
We've got you set up as host again, Daine.
can you hear me, Ron?
Loud and clear.
Okay, what if I do this? Can you still hear me if I turn this off and
Nope.
Nope.
okay, weird. For some reason I hear some background really bad, but oh well.
We're not hearing it on this side. It sounds good, Daine.
Okay, good. I'll just try and talk and listen to myself. All right, let me pull this up. Training, calling, share. Cool. How's it going, guys? Sorry for the little bit of confusion here. Let's start sharing this. So I wanted to talk today about how I make my dials. So as many of you know, actually probably not a lot of you know, but I started as literally somebody that had no idea how to talk to people. It scared the crap out of me, and warm market, like in my mind, didn't exist because I was so shy and timid and didn't believe in myself that it was just like, it just didn't even seem possible that I could talk to somebody that I knew before and could invite them down. So the only thing that I could do in the beginning was go to talking to people that I didn't know, because it was a little bit less scary, if you will. And now that I've actually learned that confidence does not come from your actions, confidence comes from within. I do a lot more, and I'm having a lot of success on the warm market because I've changed that. But I want to share with you guys how I would call somebody that was more of a cold market, that came off of some kind of advertising, or that came off of like even sometimes like a 3-foot rule, or, you know, different things like that. So for some of you who have not ever heard of this training, let's see if it's going to let me use my pencil today. And perfect. So for any of you that have never heard of this training, I'm gonna give you a link. So go to DaneClarke.com/straight line. It's also in the Google Drive. In fact, this link takes you right to the Google Drive folder. It's a little bit harder to find, so I just try to make it real easy for you guys. But DaneClarke.com/straight line. And that is a training by Jordan Belfort, where he goes through how he taught basically just 18-year-olds that were just out of high school, had no personal skills. He taught them how to be just animals on the phone. And he had these kids that were 18, 19, 20 years old that were on the phones and making millions of dollars a year because they had a system. And so you get that system down and you practice that system, and you just do the exact same system every time on the phone. I mean, these kids would close business like no tomorrow for his stockbroker company. And he goes through how to sell all the way through from beginning to end on the phone. Now, obviously a $20,000 product, you're not going to sell that over the phone, but you can use his training to get people down to a meeting. So if you can see my script here, I'm also going to give you guys a link to this where you guys can all have access to this exact script that I'm showing you. But he starts off with a couple of things that you just need to have on the phone. You need to be somebody that's enthusiastic, somebody that's a figure of authority, and enthusiastic as hell, figure of authority, and sharp as a tack. And even if you feel like you're somebody that's shy and timid, and you are allowed to practice that over the phone, because they can't see you. You can be Robert Kiyosaki when you're on the phone, because nobody's going to know that what your background is. Nobody's going to know anything. And if you say it right, people are going to treat you like a figure of authority. And in that first 4 seconds, if you can establish that with them, that, hey, I am a figure of authority, you are being graced with my phone call right now, because I'm doing you a favor by just calling you back. But anyway, so one quick thing that I wanted to talk about before we kind of dive into the script is also hugely important, is tonality. So as you are talking to somebody, you'll notice as you go through, especially like the Jordan Belfort training, but you'll also notice in the person that when you ask them questions, they kind of have this tonality that as they answer, if you guys can see this, it kind of starts a little bit low, and then you ask that question, and it kind of builds, and their tonality comes up like, oh yeah, like it, just as an example, this first question here. The first thing I want to know about them is not what their name is not anything about them. It is, how long have you been interested in real estate? So when you ask that question, you'll find that tonality go up, and they tell you a little story and this and that. And then they come back down and like, oh, like, yeah, I started getting interested because my friend, and then I looked at it and I didn't, I couldn't really, I figured out that I had to have a lot of money, and, so I never really got. You'll find that they go up and then they come right back down. And what you need to be prepared with, and this is why I could probably rattle this off in my sleep because I've used it so many times, I still actually have the script right in front of me, because sometimes when they're talking, I do want to listen to them and I want to hear what they're saying, but I also want to make sure that I'm ready with the next question, so that as soon as their tonality drops down, I'm asking the next question, like right here, almost before they're even done with telling me whatever answer they have to my question. But also the tonality is right in the beginning. I'm not sure if you guys have this problem, but when I first started, I used to call people back, and they would actually hang up within like the first just couple of seconds that I would call them and try to introduce myself and who I was and why I was calling. And I noticed, and I should say that I learned some of that training in Jordan Belfort. He talks about how you just get on the call right off the bat. So when I jump on the call, the first thing I do is try to establish those three things: sharp as a tack, enthusiastic as hell, and a figure of authority, within the first 4 seconds. And this is the way I do it. So I answer the call and I say, "Hey, this is Daine, real estate investor." And my tonality as an investor goes up, as if I had a question mark right after that. It's like, "Hey, this is Daine, real estate investor." And it makes them think like, "Oh yeah, I should know this person," because they're asking, and it's crazy. Like, I never get people hang up on me anymore. It is crazy. I can't even remember the last time I had somebody that I called them and they just hung up, because I do it this way. So, "Hey, this is Daine, real estate investor. I'm just returning your call." And same idea again. I basically put a question mark right there after call, because in their mind they're thinking like, "Oh yeah, like I called you. Okay, yeah. And then I believe you responded to an ad about the real estate trainee." And then there's the real question mark. So there's 3 times in that first sentence where I basically finish, or I use that tonality that goes up as if I'm asking a question, like, right, like, yeah, like, and they instantly jump on board with me and say, yeah, okay, yeah, I know who you are, or I should know who you are. Anyway, so after that, I try to still build a little bit of credibility. And I say, I ask the question like, "Okay, do you mind sharing with me, did you call off of the back window of the Corvette, or did you call off of just some flyer or something like that, roadside sign, like anything like that?" We're not doing roadside signs anymore, but flyer, internet ad, whatever, just plug that in. In fact, I'll have that changed by the end of today. But I asked that question because, is there a Corvette driving around somewhere, maybe even today, actually depends on the weather, I guess, but maybe tomorrow if the weather is good, that has a sign on it that says real estate investor seeking trainee, something like that? There is, right? So, and I don't care if it's not mine or if it's somebody else, it doesn't matter. There is a Corvette out there driving around that has a sign on it. And so right off the bat, I ask that question: did you call off of that Corvette, or did you just call off of like a print or flyer or whatever? And even then, some people say, "Oh, Daine, well, that's not your Corvette. What if they ask you if it's not mine?" I've never had anybody ask me. And even if I did have somebody ask me, I'd probably just say, "Oh yeah, that was my partner's." Because is Mitch your partner? Yes, he is. He helps you close your guests because he's doing that first presentation. I think somebody just chimed in, and yes, Mitch has a Corvette. That's his Corvette. I don't have it myself. I don't have one. I'd choose to drive something else, but anyway. And then I want to continue with that. This first little section here that I'm talking about is still within just the first few seconds. Like, I don't spend a lot of time in this first little while, but I'm just building that credibility for myself, the way I speak it, the way I ask it. And then I further that credibility by just saying, "Hey, I'm a busy guy." So I say, "Awesome. I don't have a ton of time right now, but do you have a minute?" Just denoting that I've got to run. I've got to, whatever. Sometimes I even say like, "Hey, I've got a few people to get through. So I'm making a bunch of dials, but do you have a minute right now?" just establish that you're a busy guy, but you're taking the time to talk to them. Okay. And then I just go through these questions, and same thing. It's always that uppity tonality towards the end. So perfect. Tell me a little bit about yourself. First of all, how long have you been interested in getting into real estate investing? And same thing. So just really quick, I noticed that I do have all these commas in here and stuff like that. Don't pause, like just really, really quick. Perfect. So first of all, tell me a little bit more about yourself. How long have you been interested in real estate investing? Because if you pause, sometimes they're going to start asking, they're going to start talking. So if you say, hey, tell me about yourself, they're going to say, oh yeah, I like, long walks on the beach, and I really enjoy, ice cream and putting root beer in it. I don't want to know that kind of stuff. I want to know how long they've been interested in real estate, I've never had anybody ask me on this, okay, but don't you want to know about me? Like, I feel like they trust that I am more of a figure of authority because I'm getting right down to business and just going straight to the point. But anyway, and then I always like to compliment them. So I listen to what they're saying and what they're telling me. Like, oh yeah, like I like, this, and I say, awesome. Well, you seem like a super sharp gal. What do you currently do for work? And then this is a qualifying question. I want to know, do they have a job? Can they even pay for this? Can they, are they in a position and a mindset where they can be successful in real estate too? I try not to judge too much because, if you looked at me at the job that I was working, I was a part-time roofer, just literally had no management skills. I literally was just the guy that knew how to fix a roof. That was it. And I didn't even know how to estimate a roof or how costs or nothing. It was just like, hey, can you fix the roof? Yeah. Okay, great. Pay me $8 an hour. I think I made it up to 12 or something like that. But anyway, so I don't know what they're doing for work, just to make sure they've at least got a job. And then the next one, I'm going into how much time can you spend with doing this new business, basically with starting your real estate business. How much time could you do up front? How much time could you do on, would you do this full time if you started making enough money, type of stuff. So, and I always try to make it sound like I want somebody to start a little more part-time, because in order, like you'll hear Bob Snyder say, make sure that you don't come from a place of absolute scarcity when you start this, because you're going to make mistakes. So I always kind of denote yeah, I'm looking for somebody to kind of start part-time, but then if it works and they start making plenty of money, yeah, let's do this full-time. Let's replace your income from your job. Let's get you spending a lot of time with us, type of stuff. But anyway, so that's kind of my mindset when I'm asking this question. I don't say all those things, but that's what I'm thinking, and that's what's behind that question. But anyway, and then I have one last question that I like to ask to see how qualified this person is really, because I want to know before I meet them, because I have a couple different systems. If I have somebody who's very qualified, they go to Thursday, and then they go to a one-on-one with me, where I sit down with them one-on-one and I do the follow-up specifically tailored to them. Or if they're maybe, I'm not quite sure, and if they're just going to be, maybe they have a forklift job, or maybe they have, again, I don't want to judge or make anybody feel bad, but if they probably couldn't just buy a full combo right off the bat, I want them to come to my follow-up, because I can meet with a handful of people at one time at my follow-up on a Friday night, for example. And I do the same thing in my follow-up on Fridays that I do with a one-on-one when it's somebody, sitting right in front of me, and that's their second exposure. It is the exact same thing. I go over, okay, here's how long it's going to take for you to get through step 1, step 2, step 3. If you put this much time into it to get into your first deal, let's run your numbers in velocity banking. So that's the big difference. Is here's how you can use velocity banking type of stuff. But anyway, you guys get it. So it's the exact same thing. I just try to appeal to the crowd on a Friday. Anyway, but even then, in the one-on-one, when I am doing a one-on-one with somebody, and going through that first 30, 60, 90-day plan, we're talking about what they really want to do. Where in the follow-up, I just say, hey, you could pick this, you could pick that, you could pick this. I mean, just up to you. Anyway, so you guys get it. I just get more tailored. So anyway, back to the credibility thing. Like how qualified are they? I like to ask them, have you ever owned real estate? Even if it was just your own home. And depending on where they go from here, if they've never owned real estate, I just want to get an idea, okay, how's your credit then? And this is the way that I ask. And I get people, I had somebody just yesterday in a phone call, literally just say, oh, I've got like a 715 credit score. So I was like, great, you're going to go to Thursday, and then you're going to immediately go to a one-on-one with me. So I asked him, let's see, what time is it? It's 8:37. Okay, let's just wrap up here real quick. So I asked him, so I don't need to tell you that with real estate, we're usually dealing with higher dollar transactions more often than not in the hundreds of thousands, depending on where you'd like to go with this. You may or may not be in a position where you're controlling larger sums of money like that. Do you already consider yourself financially literate and good with money? And I always get a story. They always tell me yes. And I mean, even if they don't feel like it, they say like, oh yeah, like I'm pretty good, but I've got a lot to learn type of stuff. So it's always a positive response. Always. And then I asked them, okay, great. Have you ever, even on a smaller scale, been able to control sums of money that wasn't yours or that weren't yours? And I'm talking from like grandma on up to a traditional lender like a bank for a car loan or credit card, anything like that. Like basically I'm asking, do you have debt or have you ever had debt? But I phrase it in a way that leads into like controlling other people's money. But really what I'm asking, hey, do you have debt? Have you ever had debt type of stuff? Okay. And then from there, like they always say, oh yeah, I've got a credit card. Oh, I've got a car. I've got student loans. I've got whatever. And my next question is, okay, do you, or have you always maintained a good credit profile with those lenders? Basically, I'm just asking, okay, did you do it right? Did you do what you said you were going to do? And at this time, I usually get answers like, oh yeah, like I've always made payments on time. I've always, whatever. Or like, oh, you know what? My credit is kind of suffering. Like I do, I'm trying to get it back up or, whatever. Or even like somebody like just yesterday, that's somebody that's coming this week, basically just straight up said, oh yeah, I've got like a 715. I always make my payments on time and I did whatever, this and that. Okay, great. Let's see, is it going to let me go to page 2? Let's see, here we go. Cool. So at this point, let's erase this so you guys can see better. At this point, just really quick, I basically go through like, okay, cool, I want to meet you. And I just go through this next little section, like, awesome, I want to meet you. Let's get introduced. I want to introduce you to my business partner, Mitch. I always say Mitch's name because he's the one that's doing the presentation. So I always bring in his name, just so that when they see him on Thursday, they're like, oh yeah, Dane talked about him. Anyway, so we're going to have a briefing, break down deals, that kind of stuff, And then I asked them, is there anything that you're doing this Thursday night at 7 p.m. that you couldn't get out of to be with us in Sandy? And again, with the tonality. And they usually say yes, or they say something else. And I try to figure out, okay, maybe a house tour on Saturday, or maybe a webinar or whatever, just whatever fits for them. I say, okay, great. What's a good email that I could shoot an invite to? And I get the email. And how do I spell your first and last name? So, I mean, again, if you'll notice, this is the first time that I've actually asked them for their name. And it's after I figured out how qualified they are. But anyway, awesome. Give you a little insight. After we meet with people, I want to meet with a smaller group, whether it's one-on-one between Friday, Saturday, you know, just depends. One of those days wouldn't be a problem. Awesome. Before I shoot that invite your way, is there any reason why you may not be able to make it on whatever time I committed them to do? Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday morning, whatever. I want to double commit them. They basically said, yes, I can be there. Here's my email, that kind of stuff. And I say, okay, before I shoot that your way, is there any reason you couldn't make it? Because I want to see how committed they are. I want to hear that. I want to hear them say that a couple of times. But anyway, and then if you guys will see here at the bottom, I've just got a couple things. Like if they didn't answer, then here's a text that I literally just copy and paste this over to so that they see it when I'm calling. Again, I mentioned the Corvette. Oh, looks like I did change it. I believe I didn't put a space though. Corvette or a Flyer, something like that. Anyway, and then one of the things that I say, and in fact, I'm just going to let you guys look at this since we're 8:40 already, but I've got a little section on if they cannot come to Thursday or Friday and I need to send them like a video, I've got a little script that I use of how to use that video to your advantage to basically, again, get them to commit 3 times to watch the video and have a follow-up call. And then I've even got a little bit of stuff on posturing. Like if you ever have anybody that gives you any kind of flack, don't take that. You don't need to take people's crap if they're kind of calling you and haggling and stuff like that. Like take that posturing or take that figure of authority seriously, and seriously just tell people that you don't have time for their bull crap. Okay. So one of the things I say for those of you who are listening in and don't see what's on the screen, I just say, you know what? I got a whole stack of people to go through, and some of them I'm going to be inviting down to see a breakdown of a recent deal right here and just seeing who's going to fit on my team most comfortably. Do you want to potentially be one of them, or do you want to just stop right here and just wait and let them simmer down? I've used this. I noticed in here that I put in parentheses that I've never used this. I've used this one time in the probably 1,000 or so calls that I've made. I've literally had to use this one time, and that's it. So like Michael Huggins says, when you're on the phones and you have those questions of like, oh, please don't say this, or please don't, like, don't even have that. Don't even think. Before you make the call, think to yourself, like, everyone I talk to is going to love and want to come and see what I have. They're going to love me and they're going to want to come and see what I have. And just have that mindset when you go in, and literally rarely will you ever get those hecklers if you treat it that way and go through that straight line and use it and actually use it. Okay. So anyway, and then I've got some other stuff in here for you guys, tips and tricks, some questions, and so all sorts of stuff, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go, but I record every single one of my phone calls. So I'm going to give those to you guys. I want to give my calls to you. So if you go to, it's in the Google Drive, but also just to make it real easy for you, it's under the Dane Clarke trainings folder, and you'll find a folder. I've got a bunch of calls in there. I record all my calls. Okay. So if you guys want to listen to my phone calls, an easy way is just go to daneclarke.com/calls. And you can listen to all the calls that I put in there. I constantly update them. And if you'd like, or actually I should say even, I've got several calls in there that I've recorded that ultimately bought combos. So feel free to listen to any of all I do try to even listen to ones that I maybe mess up a little bit, that are good, training moments for myself to listen back to myself. In fact, I had one yesterday where I kind of ruined it at the same time, and like, oh shoot. And then I had to recover, and then still was able to build that credibility back and create that intrigue, and still got him to commit to come into something. But some people are saying they can't hear. Well, if you guys can still hear me, there's the link, daneclarke.com/calls. Listen to the calls. I've got good ones, bad ones, all that stuff. And somebody says, what do I use to record my calls? I'm going to type it in here, Tape a Call app. And I just use that on my iPhone. I'm sure if you've got Android, then it's a lot easier actually to record calls on Androids. Tape a Call, I have to basically do like a 3-way every time. But yeah, so thanks guys so much. I hope this helps. And there's the access to the calls. I think I've got one in there for my training, so you can see the script. In fact, I'll do this. If you want access to this, to just the folder that has the calls, the scripts, and all that kind of stuff, then it'll be daneclarke.com/trainings, or just go to the Google Drive and find the Dane Clarke trainings folder. Okay. Anyway, love you guys. Stay classy. I will see you all at the Christmas party tonight here in Salt Lake City at 5 p.m., I believe.
Dane, that was fantastic. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your instruction today.
Yeah, my pleasure.